We're ready to go. All right, so good afternoon and good morning, depending on where you're joining, and thanks for joining this Going Global Masterclass today. My name is Cal McNeil, and I'm the Associate Director of Program Strategies here at the CFDA. Through our work under the CFDA supply chain vertical, we have built numerous resources from our production directory to our materials hub and for programs such as our Fashion Manufacturing Initiative and Supply Chain Collective, all aimed at strengthening this foundational level of your business. DHL, the CFDA's official logistics partner, has been one of our longest standing supporters actually of our supply chain work. And this year, we continue that strong partnership by offering a suite of support programs that can help your businesses expand globally, including webinars such as these, office hours for one-on-one support, which I will explain further at the end of this webinar, the continuation of the Emerging Designer DHL Logistics and Fashion Award later this year, as well as numerous new and exciting activations. We're really pleased to kick off this year's DHL programming by hearing from Rachel McGarry, head of e-commerce at DHL, who will outline key practices to discover, implement, and capitalize on opportunities to grow your business across the globe. Rachel's been an incredible resource for the CFDA, and I'm super excited to share her and her expertise with all of you today. Please note that we will hold a few minutes at the end of this webinar to answer any questions you may have for Rachel, but please feel free to submit those throughout the presentation using the question feature, and we'll address them at the end as time permits. And so thank you again for joining, and thank you, Rachel, for sharing your insights. I'll kick it off to you now.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much. Let me figure out, we'll do this share screen, make sure, keep us honest, we're doing the right stuff here.
Perfect.
So give me a thumbs up, make sure I did it right.
Well, it looks wonderful to me.
All right, awesome. Thank you so much. So yeah, thanks for the warm welcome. I'm really excited to be here with you, grateful to be with y'all. Let's kick it off. So let me start first with sharing with you what we're headed towards. Do you see? Let's make sure that you get into the right slide. All right, so here's the agenda. Today we'll explore how brands can capitalize on cross-border trends. Some really interesting, just growing global opportunity, and I want to flesh that out with you, talk about how to then capitalize it, review some tools and how to take your business to the next level. Like Kel mentioned, there's going to be time at the end for questions, and hopefully we can have a pretty good, open dialogue about some of those topics too. But let's start. First, we can't have a webinar or have a conversation about e-commerce or supply chain without talking about COVID, right? So let's get it out of the way. It's true. COVID was the biggest, the greatest digital accelerant of the century. Consumers forced to change their buying behavior just overnight, and businesses are just hustling to accommodate either that's pivoting an existing process or existing value, and then others just accelerating their existing roadmap. So the future came quickly. I think we're all we've seen it, we've witnessed it, we've been a part of it, and we're here to drive it towards the future too and make the most of it. To add a little color to that, let's take a look at the growth percentage of retail sales online. What begins in early 2010, the share of online retail sales was growing, right? It was growing pretty quick, I might add. But when the world went dark, the world basically forced our hands in a lot of ways to pivot and to accelerate, like I mentioned. And we saw a decade of growth or change, I'll say, in a period of weeks. And that impact has lasted. It's disturbed things. It's in terms of buying behaviors, it's been the lever that really had lasting change, and it's across all industries, categories, because like I said, consumer behavior shifted. And it's something, we relate to, but it's all something that we can all take advantage of likely as well. So let's dig in a little bit. I want to introduce stats that are around specifically to cross-border e-commerce. So consumers buying from overseas or just over the border. On the left, you're going to see numbers that we produce. So at DHL Express, we did our own research, and we estimated that by 2020, $900 billion would be spent on cross-border e-commerce. Turns out we were a little under. The cross-border spending hit 1.2 trillion in 2020. But what's most exciting, let's say, is looking forward. That number is now predicted to be 4.8 trillion, so more than four times what it is today. Which it's maybe another way to think about it, another way to see it, is to look at the total share of purchases. So in the late 2010s, 1 in 10 purchases that were made cross-border. COVID hyper growth and digital adoption takes place. We're at 1 in 5. And then the forecast shows 1 in 2 by 2026. What that tells me is like buyers don't care where it's coming from; they care when they get it. Right? I just want it. We're more comfortable buying, and honestly, we're more comfortable selling, and we're more experienced delivering. So it's a lot of numbers. That's just what I want you to get out of that. Is that the global opportunity is huge. Buying behavior has changed, and at global scale. And I think particularly in fashion, where exclusivity and luxury thrive on a global stage, and buyers are more and more unafraid to look cross-border. So let's take a look. We have the market is global, and the pandemic changed the way consumers are looking to buy. But it's important to take a look at what the customer, like the global customer, expectations are. And we've done our own research, as in how you make sure that you're leveraging shipping and delivery to your advantage. That's number one. Secondly, how you anticipate the needs of your cross-border buyer. So let's look at customer experience. From discovery of your product, all the way to delivery of that product reflects the brand and has the power to drive conversion and secure repeat business. Customers require fast and convenient shipping options at checkout, or 62% will abandon the cart. 84% of the shoppers saying that they would be unlikely to return to a brand if it was a poor delivery experience. So imagine a brand's products are perfection, the design is impeccable, your website's fantastic, and the delivery experience has the ability, and I'll say the responsibility, to finish the job. And that job correlates to both conversion at checkout and repeat purchases. All right, so getting those same buyers to come back again and again. And what we know, DHL, being a leader in cross-border e-commerce and working with some of the biggest and the largest fashion brands across the globe, is that global consumers demand those three things just highlighted there: flexibility, speed, and reliability at scale. So again, a lot of numbers here. I'm not going to touch on all of them, but the global customers looking for delivery options at checkout, like I just had mentioned, and then there's 30% that choose a retailer based on how fast they get it there. Right? That's an important feature to ensure that we're communicating on the website. We're making loud and clear. And when that delivery experience is positive, customers are twice as likely to return back to a retailer. And as a marketer, as a brand, so you want to make sure that you have partners in place that can help you deliver on your own customer promise that leads to repeat business, right? So great, got it, Raish. You've decided to tap into the global market, to the 2 billion shoppers that are online and outside of the US. Now what, right? I think that's a lot of brands come, we talk about that. And I think the best thing to do is first to quantify your own opportunity. And the best place to look at that, or for that, is your own website analytics. So this is an example of a partner of ours, SimilarWeb, which is a website analytics company. And first we look at the total number of visits coming to the website and broke it down by the number of international visits, so those that are coming from outside of the US. And once we have that number, it's fairly simple, right? It's easy to walk through a quick calculation to determine what the potential revenue would look like if you opened up to the international audience. So depending on the site, you can break it down from country as well, right? So you can see certain markets that you may have a bit of organic demand. And we used a 1% conversion rate, which gives us an orders per month, and kind of multiply that by your average cart value. And maybe put a little asterisk there because remember, cross-border purchases are typically higher in cart value than domestic. So you may do a little math there and add a bit. And we're able to calculate the monthly and the yearly potential revenue. So again, a simple approach to take, but as I mentioned, there's really no better place than your own backyard, your own analytics, your own data to look at where the organic demand is, and we're just a great place to start. But the last bit here, and I think particularly in the US, we have our usual suspects when it comes to international expansion, right? Canada comes to mind, Australia, those tend to be easier markets to enter because they're English speaking, credit card carrying markets. And this is your opportunity also when you look into your analytics to expand your horizons a bit, so to speak. And what would it take to go global? Evaluate the organic demand and also consider potentially less, or include, consider and include less saturated markets. I think you'd be surprised at what opens up and how easy it is to go there. So once you have an idea what the global opportunity is, it's really important to get to know the markets that you want to get into or partner with someone who does, right? It's crucial to understand items like de minimis values or identify where or if there are customs clearance requirements for your product line or unique tax laws. So down to maybe even the customer expectation or delivery preferences in that market. Just ensuring that when you go in, you go into that market, you do it well, you do it soundly, and you can make sure you do it profitably. The key concept to understand is knowing that those markets have maybe some local particularities, and it's to understand the local customs, consumer behaviors, and common payment methods, which can look and maybe feel like a lot. So we created a toolkit. I'd like to introduce that and transition into some of the tools that we have for you in this community as well. So DHL put together an international shipping toolkit, and the link is there, and you can Google it, I'm sure. But there's some great, very practical guidance on how to navigate the cross-border e-commerce space. From understanding customs jargon and requirements to the translation of, your website or potentially in local markets, but how to really make that, uncover what should you be considering, what should you think about maybe when you don't have experience there, and then again partner with those that guide you along the way. And then the last tool I have is something that DHL also developed, and we call it a website health check. It's a very simple 10-point checklist. I'm not going to go through every single one in detail for the sake of time, but feel free to reach out to us. I think, again, we said the office hours as well, so plug into that. But I want to make sure that you know and understand and how to use these insights well, right? So the first 5 is what I call maybe the basics. You need to be able to do those things just to get it to work, right? You need to offer international, offer express, so that, and get the pricing and delivery notifications in place. That's going to ensure you have a really good and positive experience for your customers. The last several I would view as the accelerant, right? So localizing the buying experience in a way that drives conversion, builds confidence, provides a greater experience around for return buyers, right? So for example, offering duties and taxes paid option. That way your cross-border customers don't have to do any extra work or make additional payments upon receiving that gift, right? Or receiving their order back to you. Or offering the website in language and currency, or providing payment options, right, that are just localized to that area. Again, driving conversion at checkout. It's all super important and a good checklist to run through your own website as you evaluate how you want to enter these markets. And then lastly, I wanted to share that e-commerce really it isn't just about opening the global doors to your global consumers, but also to businesses. That acceleration, again, in the heels of the digital accelerant of COVID, but just across the board, recognizing that digital buying, whether that's B2B or B2C, is expanding, and where brands can expand their wholesale businesses as well. The opportunity is projected to be 4 times the amount of the B2C market, right? And B2C is pretty astounding as well. And there's a blend of, most brands have a blend of direct to consumer and a wholesale distribution, and that arm of the business all working together. And it's built, as I mentioned, it's built off of the consumer buying behavior that we've talked about changing in those demands. So those same millennial customers or consumers that are now in buyer roles across these businesses as well, and they expect a digital-first, seamless experience with fast and convenient delivery. So I'd really encourage you, as a part of you, as you evaluate a global e-commerce strategy, to include your wholesale or your distribution as a part of that, to be ready for that revolution, as it will continue to influence how people buy, how you source, and how you sell in bulk. And that wraps it up for me. I really appreciate the time. Hopefully that gives us ample time to discuss any questions that may come up.
Thanks, Rachel. So we're still getting a few questions coming in, and one thing that I did note and saw within some of the notes is we will share the link to that toolkit as well, to share some additional information so you can directly access it, and then we'll also send it over within the recap of this webinar as well. One thing I would love to maybe have you go over a little bit further, if you have any further details, is there anything that you would just consider kind of a best practice as far as your specific websites and the different areas of focus that you would focus on as a business owner to make it an easier process, whether it's going through some of those specific services you outlined within the delivery time and scheduling, and anything maybe even around duties and taxes paid versus not within a website, any of those kind of best practices, and just putting you on the spot, of course, so nothing too extensive is needed, but I feel like that could be a really nice addition to this conversation.
Sure. Well, if you want, maybe I can flip back to that slide and maybe talk about that.
Yeah, that would be great.
With you. Yeah. So we have, keep me on, are we good here? Do you see what I'm talking about? Okay, so we have that website health check. Again, that delineation at the top, that's a bare essentials. Essentially ensuring that your customers know that you offer a international offering. Maybe that's not all 220 countries. Maybe it's selling directly into a couple markets, and ensuring, I think one of the biggest things and most of the feel good is that their international buyers are going to go look at your shipping page, right? They're going to go look. They don't want to waste their whole time and then get told at checkout, oh, we actually don't ship there, right? So you need to make that information accessible, preferably something that calls it out even on the homepage, now shipping internationally, or now, whatever that looks like. A lot of times people will also use that top banner where they will expose maybe using shipping as a way to drive conversion, to say, oh, free shipping over X amount, whatever that is, drive your average cart value up, and bury the shipping cost somewhere else. And that's a way for a win-win for everybody. And that's usually the place where I see where you can really answer a lot of the questions of a global buyer right at the top, and use that as a marketing tool to say, welcome, we're ready for you, we're willing to get it there, and we want you, and we have the tools in order to enable that successfully. So that's one thing. And I think I kind of touched on clearly displaying on the homepage, right? And the same thing with duties and taxes, right? So ideally, you have your goods being sent in a duties and taxes paid environment where it feels like a domestic purchase, right? You don't even know. I don't care where it's coming from. I just care that it's here in 2 days, and it's easy, right? So I think the idea is that you would be able to offer a seamless experience, but the big part of that is that you're transparent, right? As a brand, if you're not ready, you're not willing, you're not, if it doesn't add up for some reason, just ensure that people know that there may be, duties and taxes assessed upon entry into your country, and expect that you'll hear from that, and that's what's going to happen. But I think people appreciate the transparency. Ideally, there isn't anything, but sometimes there is. And so if people have a heads up and expect it going forward, they're less willing to, hold a grudge against that, so to speak, right? It's still okay. At least I knew it was coming. We're okay with this. So those are kind of pieces of advice within a website, that you want to make sure you're transparent, you're clear about the options that are available to you. Of course, the localization component too is important, right? Because that's part of assuring there's trust. There, we know you, we love you, we want your business. Maybe not love, but you know what I mean. Like, there's just that warm and fuzzy feeling. So allowing there to be product descriptions, or at the bare minimum, the checkout experience is localized to their language, so they understand and have again, that very important trust as they put in their payment method at checkout. So very, very important that you build that trust and relationship almost with those potential buyers and consumers throughout product discovery and again to the end for delivery.
That's great. Yeah, that's super helpful. And when we did a past office hours, we had a lot of discussion around that to make sure that, you're doing everything again you can to set your business up for success, and using tools, the partners that you're working with, and also just how you're designing your website, which a lot of the younger designers are going through at this moment, and also the shift between domestic and international is a big shift, and so these things can really help you to make it a much easier and successful, I think.
Yeah, I mean, I think the idea is like, yes, it's a big shift, but then you kind of, is it? Right?
Yeah. Sure.
I think that's there. It's knowing how to maybe lower the barriers of entry into those markets, because I think the idea is that, gosh, it's so much work, it's not worth it. I'm already have this domestic play, and it's it's a saturated market, yes, but at least I know what I'm doing. And it's taking a moment to demystify that global market space, understanding and lowering and recognizing that it's maybe not as hard as you think it is when you partner with the right people. And that's probably what I'd say. Yeah,
it's scary when you're imagining what it is, and then you actually realize that there's not as many hurdles. That makes complete sense. One thing that I wanted to touch on also from some past office hours, if you could just kind of speak to a little bit, is how can like the experts within DHL can they get to very specific, by country basis information, around like, I just remember one example of a country in Africa that has a very specific free trade, laws, or I'm probably saying that incorrectly, but something very specific as to, waiving specific fees or duties or taxes within a global trade agreement. Are things like that, something that a designer can address with DHL within office hours, or within, other kind of customer service ways as well?
Yeah, I mean, I think that the fastest answer to say is yes. Yes, you can bring it. Our strength is our global network, and that global network is a group of people, right? It's physical assets, all those things, but it's bound by people and experience. And I can't tell you how many times where, you can ask me that question, I will hand on heart say, no, I don't know the answer to that. But I also hand on heart can say, but I know someone who does, right? And we bring that in, and we leverage the local experience of our vast global network, and likely the countries that you're referring to in Africa that have experience within that, and navigate those, like whether it's, trade laws or compliance or requirements, or, fill in the blank with what other questions there may be. And that's something that we do on the daily. And I think, honestly, that's a place where we really shine, given our experience globally.
Yeah, absolutely. That's great. One thing, one question that's coming in is, and it may be more specific for a office hour for the specific brand, but asking a little bit around integrations around business and sales platforms. An example is something around Shopify specifically. Do you happen to have any details that you can share on implementing, some of those different integrations with those platforms?
Yeah, I mean, that's a world I live in, right? In e-commerce, you're as strong as the technologies that you work with, right? It's all whether that's e-commerce platforms or robust shipping platforms or WMS and all the things that enable a sound strategy and processes that work. So yes, I know. I'm not so sure exactly what the question is, but yes, we work very closely with Shopify in a lot of different ways. We integrate with them through we have an app that DHL built, which is called DHL Express Commerce. And that allows there to be rates at checkout and a very seamless way to print labels and work there too, or seamlessly work within your own, let's call it a shipping platform, or those wherever you print labels through. It's meant to be meant to connect and integrate in a really seamless way. And I've been, we have thousands of customers globally using it through Shopify as well. So I feel very confident in that space that we can, whatever the underlying question or specifics might be, we can address it in the office hours, but very confident in that space.
Great. And Lily, who submitted that question, please, we'll reach out as well about the office hours to get some special help for you on that one. And I think we had another designer as well ask about the specific connections there.
Okay.
One question that is asked is, how soon is too soon to offer international shipping for a business, or is that not such a thing? You're kind of based on our conversation.
I don't think it's too soon. Honestly, you look at in my view, this is my experience, right? So this is all to how much time you got, right? How quickly do you want to grow? What markets? There's certain products out there, especially, in this space where you have an exclusive product that generates a ton of demand, and how you navigate that demand strategically is going to be your decision, right? So there's a lot of different ways you can do that. That said, I don't think I've not talked to a customer that said, gosh, I did it too soon. Because you start and you learn and you iterate and you move forward and you recognize that there's global appeal for your product and you learn to do it well, so that so it's at your own discretion. But I would never dissuade anyone to stop. Start now. Maybe choose a couple of markets at a time. I would say going, if you're a small business trying to solve for the globe, might be tricky.
Sure.
So, narrow your scope a bit. Learn, iterate, grow. Just like everything else that we do, and you'll be successful. But yeah, I wouldn't dissuade you from jumping in.
Agreed. Yeah, I feel like it's just all about, from anything that we say from CFDA side, is all about the preparation. Is the most important part, and as long as you're prepared, then I don't think I would agree from a non-expert side in logistics and shipping to say that as long as you're doing your homework and research behind it and understand some of the different hiccups that could happen and also the opportunities that will happen, that you can set up anything that you're looking for there. There's a question. Do you know how we could implement customs duties and taxes paid? Maybe it's a specific question for, is there an actual integration within services that you have, or maybe tools, within the toolkit or other things that can maybe speak to it even further around, maybe step by step, this question could be asking?
Sure. So the question, just to make sure I understand it, is how do we allow or enable a duties and taxes? Either is the question at checkout or just enabled through shipping?
It's not specifically, but at checkout. But I would guess that.
Yeah, I would assume so. Yeah, that's fine.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of different options. I'll say that we work with and partner with several companies that enable that at checkout as well. So it depends on your own resources. Usually I would say that, right? Do you have a development team available to you that would like to invest in your checkout strategy to enable? Because we have APIs, we have that sort of availability isn't necessarily turnkey, but it's available to you. So again, scope out the work and evaluate what's the best for you. We also work with companies out there that's all they do, right? That is their job to solve the checkout, to solve conversion for international shipping, and have a really fantastic value proposition that we can also talk to you about. So again, office hours, I would encourage you to say, great, who do you work with? What is that? And kind of talk to us about what you're trying to achieve. The resources that you have at hand, what's ideal for you and what you're looking to do. And we can take you to the right place, or we can guide you in a few directions that it's going to be best fitted for you.
Sure. One question that just came into the chat is more around as an emerging designer, is there a specific service or maybe like a level of interaction within the DHL team that if they're small and they're too small, are there certain minimums or anything that's required to kind of access a specific service from DHL, or is it seem to be overarching, they're all available to you, just using the right amount of customer service obviously with your team to implement them?
Yeah, DHL Express does not have a minimum requirement of shipments, right? The way that to answer that question, no, we don't have a minimum. We serve and focus very clearly on we serve the large customers, but we don't stop at the large customers. Let's say it that way. We have a strategic focus, honestly, on the small and medium-sized businesses and products that serve. It's the same plane that you would serving a really large customer, like in terms of delivery and the experience itself. But we also have a wonderful customer service that and operations that support about all sizes of business.
Great. And I will speak even to, if the question was also about kind of the CFDA DHL opportunities as well. Mm-hmm. We definitely have our CFDA membership that we serve first and foremost within some specific opportunities for partnerships, whether it's inviting a designer to an opportunity like this, or the office hours, which I'll touch on a little bit more, or the emerging designer award that I touched on as well at the beginning. There will be potentially some specific requirements as we do with any CFDA programming, but as it relates to a lot of these open access, information shares, it definitely, we don't have any kind of minimum requirements from accessing this information as well, very purposefully, so we can share it to as many designers as possible, knowing that it's really practical and great information to share overall. So so I don't have any other specific questions that are coming in. If you have any last minute ones, please jump in, and I can either send them over to Rachel after this and then answer after this. But if not, we will jump into the kind of conclusion overall, and I'll share a little bit about the office hours now. One person just asked, they joined a few minutes late. I think it's a little bit around something that we covered earlier. So Natasha, I'm happy to address this directly with you around integrations of DHL on the website of a designer's website directly. So we can answer that after this. So and a few people are jumping in for the recording and the office hours information. So I will just kick it off to that to kind of close out the conversation. Thank you again, Rachel, number one. Really interesting topics and very timely, I think, as well, for some designers starting their businesses. Obviously, they're all growing their businesses and, just navigating some difficult times within this area of expertise that, we all need to try and tackle, which is supply chain. Thank you all for your questions. And so now I'm going to just talk really quickly about our DHL office hours opportunity. So as an additional resource for CFDA members and other designers in the CFDA's network, the CFDA and DHL will be hosting DHL office hours, where you will have access to speak to directly with DHL team members and experts to address kind of more specific questions related to your own supply chain and businesses versus some of these wider questions that were answered during the discussion here. So topics can be completely determined by your team. But past areas of focus have included imports and exports, duties and taxes, custom clearance, cross-border e-commerce, and much more. Very specific things, were addressed, and I sat in many of them in the past, and it was incredible to see, number one, the range of questions, but also the range of expertise from DHL side to answer, I think 99.9% of those questions at such a specific form. So that was really exciting to see. And so we'll be continuing those in the future very soon. A form to schedule those office hours will be distributed first to CFDA members and interim members, and then will be distributed more widely to this audience. So please be on the lookout for a recap, a recording of this conversation, as well as information into the office hours also. And then if there's any additional questions that you have regarding CFDA supply chain work, our partnership, more around some of the opportunities that I addressed also for our partnership overall within like the Emerging Designer Award. There's some specific CFDA member benefits that we'll be outlining as well. You can just email me at supplychain@cfda.com, and we'll either help you set up an office hour and send over that form, or connect you directly with anyone we need to answer a question, get something fixed. And I also, even just from my own personal experience with DHL, I know they have a really great customer service line and site and everything like that. So I'm sure Rachel, if there's anything else to add there for everyday questions that may not be addressed in an office hour where it's very specific to business goals, I'm sure DHL can offer those as well. So I will end it with that from my end. But thank you for joining, and thank you again, Rachel, for lending your expertise to us. And I hope you all have a great rest of your week, and will join us in the future professional development webinars as well.
Thanks for having me. Really
Thanks, guys. Talk to you all soon.
Bye-bye.